Good morning. It's great to be with you. You know, I've got to tell you, Chris and I are such fun friends. We have a good time. And so I love music. You were listening to my playlist earlier. I hope you loved it. And I love music. And so when he first endorsed me, you got to have a walkout song. You got to have something. And so I didn't know what he had chosen. So when they introduced him, you know, it's Welcome to the Jungle, Guns N' Roses. I looked at him and I'm like, nice. That was really nice. Because my first concert was Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses opened up for him. So it was good. I had a new respect for him. Well, first of all, thank you for filling this room. I mean, get excited. 5 more days until we vote. I know why I'm excited because I've been campaigning here for 11 months. I know why you're excited because guess what? After 5 days, no more commercials, no more mail, no more text messages. All of that goes away. So I know you're excited. Look, I mean, things are tough right now. You don't have to turn on the news to know how tough it is. You feel it in the grocery store. You feel it at the gas station. You feel it in your mortgage payment, your insurance payment. Everything that we have to pay has gone up. We are $34 trillion in debt. We're having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. China owns some of that debt. And I would love to tell you that Biden did that to us. But I've always spoken in hard truths, and I'm going to do that with you today. Our Republicans did that to us too. You know it by looking at that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that they passed with no accountability, that left us with 80 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. That's a third of our country. We've got to start getting things back on track. Number one, don't you think it's time we'd put an accountant in the White House for once? So what do we do to get this back on track? The first thing we need to do is we need to acknowledge the fact that if Republicans and Democrats are doing this, we're going to call them out on it. Do you know they have one job? One job Congress has, and that's to go and give us a budget on time. Do you know they've only given us a budget on time 4 times in 40 years? That's it. You know what I say? You don't give us a budget on time, you don't get paid. We're going to start holding them accountable. What we will do is we will stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the pet projects and earmarks, and I will veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. That will save us trillions. Then we're going to take as many federal programs as we can and send them down to the state level. That will reduce the size of the federal government and it will empower people on the ground. Think education, think welfare, think healthcare, think mental health. All of those things came down to the states without strings attached, we could get a lot more done. Then we want to go and make sure that we open up the middle class. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Let's make sure we let the middle class breathe. That's why we want to eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. Let's cut taxes on the middle class and simplify those brackets. And we're going to make the small business tax cuts permanent. They made corporate tax cuts permanent, but they made small business tax cuts temporary. Small businesses are the heartbeat of our economy. We need to start acting like it. When it comes to education, do you know right now in America, only 31% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in reading? Only 27% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in math. If we don't do something and do something quick, we're going to be in a world of hurt 10 years from now. That's why we're going to focus on what it takes to get these kids reading again. In South Carolina, we knew if a child couldn't read by 3rd grade, they were 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So instead of pushing them forward, we started pushing them back. We brought in their parents. We did reading remediation. We set them up for success. We're going to do that all over our country. We have got to get our kids reading again. The second thing is, parents have one job. We know exactly what it is our kids need. Parents should be the ones deciding where their kids go to school and what their mode of education is. And we need complete transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught to their child in school. We will put all of those curriculums online so that every parent can see what's being taught to their child. And let's start building things in America. Let's put vocational classes back into our high schools. We had apprenticeships all over South Carolina. We taught our kids how to build the things we were making. If we do that across the country, we will get our kids invested even before they finish school, and they will be invested in our economy. And then when it comes to the border, it doesn't even look like the United States of America anymore. It really is recklessness at a whole new level. Now, I know that Donald Trump went on a temper tantrum about me last night and had lots of things to say. And he said that I didn't want a border wall, and that's not what I said. I said I don't just want a border wall. We've got to do a whole lot more than that, and he should have done that when he was president. The way we'll do that is when I was governor, we passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. President Obama sued us over it, and we won. We will take that and go nationwide with it. We will do a national E-Verify program that requires every business to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. We will defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens for illegal immigrants. We'll put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We will go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil. And instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That's what will close off the northern and the southern borders. And then my parents always told me, you take care of those who take care of you. I'm going to ask you if we're taking care of those who take care of us. Right now in America, over 35,000 veterans are homeless. 1 in 3 suffers from PTSD or thoughts of suicide. We lose 22 heroes a day to suicide. If a veteran needs a doctor's appointment, on average, it takes 29 days. Why 29 days? Because on the 30th day, they can go to the doctor or hospital of their choice. So midway through the 29 days, they get a call to reschedule, and the clock starts all over again. It's shameful how we treat our veterans. Now, I'm the proud wife of a combat veteran. He deployed to Afghanistan. The day he came home to us, that was a lot of prayers answered. But that was the easy part. When we got home, life got hard. Michael couldn't hear loud noises. He couldn't be in crowds. Life had passed him by for the year that he was gone, and the transition was tough. We can't just love our men and women when they're gone. We got to love them when they come back home, too. So instead of just doing a 2-week transition, let's make sure we take care of them for the long haul. Let's do telehealth so they can get the mental health care they need right when they need it. Let's make sure they can go to the doctor or hospital of their choice. They've earned that right. And when it comes to VA health care, I think the best way to deal with it is every member of Congress should have to get their health care from the VA. And you watch how fast that gets fixed. It'll be the best health care you've ever seen, guaranteed, I promise. And speaking of Congress, don't you think it's finally time we had term limits in Washington, D.C.? Don't you think we need to have mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75? Now, let me say this. I'm not being disrespectful when I say that. We all know 75-year-olds that can run circles around us. And then we know Joe Biden. These are people making decisions on our national security. These are people making decisions on the future of our economy. Right now, Congress has become the most privileged nursing home in the country. We need to know that these are people at the top of their game. We need to know that they know exactly what they're doing. I don't care if we do it for 50 and up. But we need to make sure we're getting the right people in there. And then there were 2 things when I was at the United Nations that Russia, China, and Iran never wanted us to have. They never wanted us to have a strong military, and they never wanted us to be energy independent. We won't be energy independent, we'll be energy dominant. We will get the EPA out of the way. Right now, the EPA cares more about sagebrush lizards than they do about whether you can afford your utility bill. We will make sure we speed up permitting. We will make sure we open up our pipelines, including the Keystone Pipeline. We'll export as much liquefied natural gas as we can. We'll do nuclear. We'll do everything we need to not just be energy independent, but to turn our energy sector into an economic powerhouse. When we do that, not only will we bring our inflation down, but no more going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia, no more getting dirty oil from Iran or Venezuela. Now, when it comes to national security, the world is on fire. You've got a war in Europe, you've got a war in the Middle East, you've got North Korea testing intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of hitting the U.S., you've got China on the march. But make no mistake, none of that would have happened had we not had that debacle in Afghanistan. The idea that my husband and his military brothers and sisters who served there had to watch us leave Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that told our friends. More importantly, think about what that told our enemies. Now, the problem we have right now is you've got Congress saying, do we support Ukraine? Do we support Israel? Do we support Israel? Do we secure the border? Don't let them lie to you like that. That's a false premise. This is about priorities. First of all, securing our border is priority number one. America's acting like it's September 10th. We better remember what September 12th felt like. Secondly, when you look at any of these countries that are trying to threaten us, this is about preventing war. My husband is a combat veteran. The last thing I want our military men and women to do is go fight a war. We have to have a president that has moral clarity, one that knows the difference between good and bad, and right and wrong, one that understands your sole job is to protect Americans and to make sure national security is intact. And you always want to prevent war. That is what we will always do. And the problem right now is no one will tell you the truth. When I'm your president, I will tell you what we're doing, why we're doing it, and get you invested in the process. That's how we fix things. I will also tell you, I don't think we should give cash to any country, friend or foe, because you can't follow it and you can't hold it accountable. I don't think we need to put troops on the ground. The Ukrainians don't want it. We need to just make sure we always give them the equipment and ammunition to win. Because dictators always tell us what they're going to do. I dealt with Russia, China, and Iran every day. You don't go put your head in the sand. You stand up and you let them know what we expect of them. That's how we will keep America safe. You know, you've got a choice to make in 5 days. And the country is all watching you. And right now, what we have seen is we have to make a decision. Do we want more of the same, or do we want to go forward in a new direction? And more of the same is not just Joe Biden. More of the same is also Donald Trump. When you think of more of the same is the fact that over 70% of Americans don't want a Trump-Biden rematch. The majority of Americans disapprove of Biden and Trump. The majority of Americans don't want to see two 80-year-olds battling it out for president. The majority of Americans are frustrated that both of these presidents put us trillions of dollars in debt that our kids are never going to forgive us for. Everybody wants to talk about how good the economy was under Trump. He put us $8 trillion in debt in 4 years. Let me tell you, as an accountant, you don't create a good economy by putting us in debt. You create a good economy by getting us out of debt. And Americans don't want to see a president, Joe Biden or Donald Trump, that are dealing more with investigations than they are on whether they're preventing us from going to war. This is about more of the same, or do we want a new generational conservative leader focused on the solutions to take us forward? We've got to leave the negativity and the baggage of the past and focus on what's going to take care of us, not just for 4 or 8 years, but for 20 and 30 years out. But we have to acknowledge some hard truths to do that. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That's nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. And the other thing is, we cannot afford a President Kamala Harris. We won't survive it. And so we've got to make sure we're not going through another nail biter of an election. Look at any one of these head-to-head polls against Biden.
Beating Trump by 8 points.
Beating him by more than that. Trump and Biden, on a good day, are even. Trump might be up by 2 points. That's margin of error. I'm in every one of those same general election polls, and I defeat Biden by 17 points. Now, I got to say this. When Trump was doing his temper tantrum yesterday, he goes and he put down the poll that said I was beating him by 17 points. He said something like it was a poll done by a dirty person or a dirty poll or whatever he called it. What cracks me up, it was his pollster that did the poll. Look, if you win by double digits, that's more than the presidency. That's House, that's Senate, that's governorships. You look right now, Congress is getting nothing done. Why? Because there's no majority in the House. There's no majority in the Senate. The infighting is happening because we lost the midterms because of Trump again. So if we go in with a double-digit win in November, that's a mandate to get our wasteful spending to stop and get our economy back on track. That's a mandate to get our kids reading again and go back to the basics on education. That's a mandate to secure our border with no more excuses. That's a mandate to bring law and order back to our country, and that's a mandate for a strong America we can be proud of. Don't you want that again? Because we could have that. But in order to have that, it's going to take a lot of courage. Courage from every single person in this room. Courage for me to run. And courage for every one of you to know. Don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't go and play in this primary. It matters. Now, I've seen the commercials you've seen. I've seen the mailers that are coming into your mailbox. It's amazing to me how Joe Biden can say to you, we've got a great economy, and we're supposed to believe it. It's amazing how Donald Trump does the same thing and tells you things and just thinks you're going to believe it. He says, I'm not for border security. I told you I was. Now he's saying I want to cut Social Security. I never once said that, ever. But if he's going to lie about me, we're going to tell the truth about him. Because he said he wants to raise the retirement age to 70. While he was president, he proposed a gas tax increase of 25 cents. See it for what it is. I'm going to tell you the truth. You're going to see a lot of things said. But at the end of the day, it's the drama and the vengeance and the vindictiveness that we want to get out of the way. Politics is not personal for me. I just don't want my kids to live like this anymore. You know, when I announced, somebody asked me why I was doing this. I said, my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want them to know that country again. I'm doing this for my husband, Michael, and his military brothers and sisters. They need to know their sacrifice matters. They need to know that we love our country. I'm doing this for my daughter who just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. The average home buyer in America now is 49 years old. And I'm doing this for my son who's a senior in college, and I am tired of watching him write papers of things he doesn't believe in just to get an A. That's not us. That's not America. And for the first time, 81% of Americans don't think their kids are going to live as good of a life as we did. We can't be okay with that. I'm not okay with that. We have a country to save. Do you know, 6 months ago, I dropped my husband Michael off at 4 a.m. for another year-long deployment. And I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they'd never been, all in the name of protecting America. They're willing to sacrifice their lives and their families because they still believe in this amazing experiment that is America. So if they're willing to sacrifice for us there, shouldn't we be willing to fight for America here? Because we have a country to save. So let me tell you this. If you like what I have to say today, go tell 10 people. Take them to the polls. Get them out on Tuesday. Because this is something we can do. You can make this happen. And I trust you. So let's get out. Let's show the country. We're not going to do more of the same. We're going to go forward. And what I promise you is our best days are yet to come. God bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think, Andrew, do we have time for a couple of questions? We're going to take a couple of questions real quick. If you've got a question, keep your hand up high, and they will come find you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate what you're doing. It's very difficult, and I think everyone in the room understands that. I'm going to be retiring in 6 months. I'm really thrilled about it.
Congratulations.
And what I'd like to understand is what you plan on doing to help protect Social Security, not only for me, but for my children and my grandchildren.
Very important. You know, Trump says he's not going to do anything with Social Security. And that's actually incredibly irresponsible because Social Security will go bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare will go bankrupt in 8. So anybody saying that they're going to do that, that means they're going to go become president and leave it, and you're going to get a 25% cut. That is not okay. What I will tell you is we do have to acknowledge what's happening with Social Security. The accountant in me knows that we have to get in front of it. And the way we'll do that is we won't touch any of yours. If you have paid in, America should always keep her promises. You will be protected. But we do have to make some changes. But the changes need to go to those like my kids in their 20s. We'll go to them, and we're going to say we're going to raise the retirement age to reflect life expectancy for you. Instead of cost of living increases, we'll go increases based on inflation. It's more accurate. We'll limit benefits on the mega wealthy, and we'll expand Medicare Advantage plans that create competition, and seniors love that. If we do that, we'll start addressing it so not only do you have it, but our kids will have it. That's the whole goal, is to make sure it's solvent for them. But you don't do it by putting your head in the sand. You do it by saying we're going to get in front of it, we're going to fix it, and we're going to make sure that we keep our promises. And that's what I'll do for you. Thank you.
Oh, it's me.
Yes, it's you.
When you are president, I'm sure you will, what sort of event would have to occur for you to ask Congress to declare instead of you as president doing whatever you would do?
It's a very good question. You know, the biggest thing that, I dealt with Russia, China, and Iran every day. The biggest thing is deterrence, and that's what frustrates me with what happened with Biden. And it's what frustrates me with what happened under Trump in certain circumstances. When China gave us COVID, Trump praised President Xi a dozen times after that. And China went in and took Hong Kong. And we didn't say anything, we didn't do anything. Instead, Trump said he stood with them. Well, you know what that did? That just made Taiwan more vulnerable. Then Biden comes in, we have the debacle in Afghanistan. The whole time Russia was surrounding Ukraine, he didn't do a single thing. Now you've got all of these things, and we see our military, men and women, are sitting in bases, and they've got strikes from Iran going constantly at them, putting them in danger. When I went to the United Nations, I told countries what America was for and what America was against. I didn't care if they didn't like me, but I wanted them to respect America. This is about preventing war. And the way you prevent war is you stop it before it starts. So my goal is we never go to war. That is the last resort. You never want to do it. What you do is, for example, right now, there would be no Hamas without Iran. There would be no Houthis without Iran. There wouldn't be Hezbollah without Iran. So instead of playing around the edges and watching Hezbollah go and make these attacks, or watching Hamas make these attacks, coming out, watching the Houthis in Yemen, go after the source of where they're doing it. Take away their stockpiles. In Iraq and Syria, when you've got them shooting at our men and women, take out the stockpiles so that they can't do it. And the number one thing to stop Iran, when we got out of the Iran deal, we decimated their economy. If Iran has no money, the Houthis have no money. Hezbollah has no money. Hamas has no money. None of that. Go and put the sanctions back on Iran. Instead, what did Biden do? He lifted the terrorist designation from it. There are so many things you could do to prevent war. It's the last thing you ever want to do is send our men and women out. So I can tell you, under my watch, we will deter, we will prevent, and there's never any scenario that I can see where you just casually say, let's go to war. We're never going to do that. Last question. Make it a great one.
I want to thank you for your unwavering support of Israel. And this unwavering, it means a lot. But my question I want to ask you is, it's politically toxic to cut spending, to cut entitlement. So how are you going to balance the budget in a way that isn't, costly at the polls?
No, it's a good point. So how do we cut spending? So the first thing I'll tell you is I'm going to do exactly what I did as governor. It's not what I say, it's what I've already proven as governor and as ambassador. The first thing we'll do, we'll replace the head of every agency. Whether they're doing a good job or not, we've got to freshen it up. The second thing is we'll go back to the mission of that agency. Right now we're watching. Government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. We'll get that agency mission focused, and I sent people into every one of my agencies as governor. We'll do the same thing as president. We will pull down all the old programs, all the regs, get rid of problem children. It's a huge issue if you got them playing politics in an agency. Clean it up. And then I required them to do 90-day benchmarks. They had to show the taxpayers a return on investment. So every 90 days, that agency is going to show what it's doing for you. And then we saw they were spending because they were worried they wouldn't get the same amount of money the next year. So we put all the spending online for everybody to see. And then we incentivized them to give money back to the taxpayers. And magic happened because they started to compete to see who could be the most efficient and effective in the process. You start with what you can control first. And then you go to Congress and you say, it's your turn. And you start showing them where they need to cut. On top of that, moving those federal programs down to the state level, dramatically reducing the federal government. Right now, we have 70% of federal employees still working from home 3 years after COVID. We've got over 75% of most of our agencies sitting empty. We're paying for that. That's ridiculous. All of these things have to come down. I did that in South Carolina. I paid down our debt. I built up our coffers. We cut taxes. We got it back on track. At the UN, I cut $1 billion off the top. To me, the number one thing we do is cut waste, because right now in 2 years, we will be paying more for interest than our defense budget. And think about what Russia, China, and Iran are going to think about that. And even when we talk about building up a strong military, you don't throw money at the Department of Defense. You clean it up. It's got too many programs, red tape, bureaucracy, slow. They're playing. Stop these gender pronoun classes that are demoralizing our military. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you need to pay more money to government. Government's making a lot of money. This is about priorities. It's how you spend the money they already have to create more of an economy. That's the problem, is DC has forgotten that it's not their money, it's our money. And we've got to get back on track. So I will leave you with this. Thank you for coming out. We're going to be doing events throughout the next 5 days. If you've got friends and family that want to come out, tell them to go to nikkihaley.com. Go tell 10 people to get out to the polls. In 5 days, we shocked the country. Let's get it done. God bless you. Thank you.